Alright, first, this week in anime, I'm going to start off with Fairy Tail, episode 219, entitled, it's a filler episode entitled, What Pure Heart Weeps. And basically, main plot of this episode, it's, Alzak and Visca go on a mission, and they leave, against their common sense, they leave Natsu to babysit their daughter. Who was I don't know. Then, after some series of, immature moments, Natsu, in his most immature moment, decides to challenge their daughter Asuka
Mm-hmm.
to a sharpshooting contest to see, and that the winner has to do what the other person says for an entire day. And guess what? Natsu loses. Which they rationalize because her parents are the two best sharpshooters in the guild. So they figured, oh, she should be good, even though she's only like 3, 4 years old. She's a better shot than Natsu. Who knew? And with a childish like gun where it like looks like it shoots out corks or a little. That just makes it all the funnier. Now, of course, she takes full advantage of this, starting out by making him do some humiliating things like ride or, pretend to be her horsey and, run around the guild like a horse, and then tells him to go out into the town and ride around like this. And even at one point tries to, and then she asks them, Natsu, Lucy, and Happy to take her out on some jobs, even though she's not old enough to. And the reason is because she wants to build up enough money to buy a certain item from this pawn shop. It's a snow globe, or a snow globe lacrima. Because you can't have a round glass type thing in Fairy Tail without it being a lacrima.
Uh-huh.
No, it can't just be a snow globe. It has to be a snow globe lacrima. And even at one point, they bring up the whole Natsu-Lucy relationship thing, and she tries to make them two kiss. And Natsu's like, I'll kiss Lucy. No big deal. I'll do it for you if you ask. And then and Lucy's like, makes a big deal out of it because she's like, I don't know if we should do this, or I'm not ready. And then she just blocks the kiss with Happy. And Happy and Natsu proceed to end up making out. Which is hilarious. Then, when Asuka finally gets enough money to buy the snow globe, a gang of sky pirates decides to steal it from them, and she tries to shoot them down, but her little gun doesn't have enough even though she has the right aim, and it actually hits them. It doesn't have enough power to actually take them down. So Natsu, being a little, trying to do something nice, he pulls her hat down so she can't see, and then has her shoot, and then she shoots, and he uses her aim so he can properly aim his shots to take them down, and makes it pretend like she took them down, like the big brother, like a big brother would do, to be nice to their little sister.
Mm-hmm.
But then this reveals to Lucy that Natsu was actually much better. At first, it seemed that he only was able to knock them down because he was following the path of her shots, but in fact, he was just as good, if not better, sharpshooter than her. And actually, Lucy then realizes that he lost the contest on purpose to be nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then when they return to the guild, all the while, the reason why they go out in the first place was because Asuka wants them to get a cake, but since they're sold out of cake, they decide to do a team effort to make a cake, where you have Wendy's making a cake, and Carla's making some whipped cream to put on top of the cake, and Urza, who, as we all know, is obsessed with cake, decides to, for reasons nobody knows, decides to force Lily out on a trip to find some super delicious strawberries. Which, I mean, it's hilarious, because, and then Asuka gives the snow globe to her parents, and we finally get, and then we get a little backstory as to why it was this she wanted this globe so badly, and that it used to belong to her parents, and that it was actually given to them as like part of a reward for a job, the first job that Alzak and Biska did together, kind of like a important memory for them.
Mm-hmm.
It was their first mission, and they got this globe. But the reason why it was in a pawn shop was that, and she doesn't know this because her parents never told her, but they had to pawn it in order to afford medicine for Asuka when she was sick. Like, she was sick, they needed money for medicine, so they sold it. But now she got it back, and it kind of has a nice, cute family moment. So this episode, it was a filler episode, but I felt it was it was a good filler episode because it was, see, Fairy Tail, like most anime, sucks when it comes to filler arcs. But the one thing that I like about Fairy Tail's filler is their solo filler episodes that are, what's the word, self-contained plot,
Mm-hmm.
because they always tend to be very funny or very heartfelt or both, usually. So that's what I felt. I say this was a very good episode in terms of for a filler episode. It was very good because it, even though the backstory of the snow globe isn't actually canon, but there's just the story that the way they wrote it and the comedy and the heart was actually very nice, and I enjoyed it very much. Now, for a quick preview of what to expect from the next episode. Now, when I first saw the title for the next episode, it was called 413 Days. Like I saw, I think it was on. I think they showed it on Wikipedia like a week or two ago. They had it up there. I was like, what the hell? Like, because I'm still, because the one issue I always have is that when I'm watching an anime of a manga that I'm reading, it's it tends to be a while in between the episode, when the chapter comes out and when the episode comes out, and sometimes they use the name of the chapter as the name of the episode, depending. So I don't know exactly when titles, because I was trying to figure out by the titles of future episodes when they're going to go back to canon. Now the next episode isn't canon, but I had no idea what the hell this episode was going to be about until they showed the preview at the end of this week's episode. And in honor of Valentine's Day, they are doing a Groovia focused episode.
Oh God.
And the thing that they spent the majority doing in the preview was, Juvia was frantic, going all over the place, trying to prepare for something, and all you hear is Happy in the background talking about, saying how she said something about 413 days, or 413. What's 413? Thinking it's a date, but it's actually, so. But yes, this week for Valentine's Day, they're gonna do a Groovia filler episode. That should be interesting.
Yeah.
Since Strider here is a huge Gray fan.
Mm-hmm.
So you can look forward to that.
I'm not much of a Groovia fan, but I do like. Obviously, I like
Gray.
You know, and I like Juvia too, separately. So.
Honestly, I think that that relationship is pretty much almost set in stone based on what happened in the manga recently.
Yeah.
However, I think this, but it not when it, all I can say this, because just in case anybody here who's listening to this review doesn't read the manga, all I can say is this: it's going to change the dynamic. I feel like if they do when they do get together, it's not going to be weird, because Gray and Ju is also going to want, like, when it does happen, Gray's going to want it, and she is now no longer super obsessive about it. So I feel like they're going to mesh better now.
Mm-hmm.
so it's not going to be so it's going to be much more likable. Because one of the main reasons why Strider says he likes the character, I mean, he was always a great fan. But he really only likes Juvia when she's separate from him because she's fangirling over him every time she sees him.
Oh,
So
I
it's
don't
kind of
mind that so much. I just don't think the pairing is. I honestly, I'm more of a fan of Gray and Lucy, or
what?
Gray and Erza. It's
Wait,
weird,
what?
but I know it's weird, but
You can't do that because Jalal would be on Gray's ass if that happened. Because you all know Urza still wants that Jalal D.
it's all right.
So yeah, it was a good episode for a filler, and that's what I have to say for this week in Fairy Tail. And next is One Piece, which, as we all know, based off of recent episodes of One Piece, that this episode isn't filler, but they are super dragging things out. Like they put some in-canon filler, that really only serves as padding to extend scenes, so they can stretch the content out, so they don't worry about catching up. But this episode was episode 681, entitled "The 500 Million Berry Man Target Usoland." And basically, it was a drawn out of Doflamingo revealing the names of the people who are on his hit list and how much they're worth. Now, if any of you guys remember, if any of you here are also read the manga, you remember this chapter. And it basically, I think it began that chapter. And it was just basically shown, like everybody except Usopp was shown on the first page, and then the second page we saw Usopp and his bounty that Doflamingo had put out. But in this episode, they drew it out by him first announcing all the 1 stars together. Then he announced all the 2 stars together. Then he announced all the 3 stars. And then, big dramatic pause. And then Usopp. And then had like a big recap at the end of everybody. So it was like, it's very drawn out, which is typical lately for the One Piece anime.
Uh-huh.
And, you start to see how now that there are bounties on these people's heads, how the random citizens are starting to go after these people. Now, the main there was also, but being One Piece, they had to throw in some comedy, and the comedy, of course, was Usopp. They had because of the long pause in between the reveal of the 3-star people and Usopp. Usopp was like, phew, he didn't notice me, or he doesn't know about me. And then his big funny face he makes when he finds out he's targeted at 500 million berries. And then you have all the people who were just worshiping his god Usopp saying, "We're sorry about this, god Usopp, but we have to kill you now."
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of funny. And then you had Robin, Koala, Sabo, and Hack trying to escape. And the funny part is with that group before this, is you have Bartolomeo, who has to specifically ask Robin, "Is Usopp Sogeking?" And then when he gets it when he hears that Robin, person he knows for a fact is a part of the Straw Hats, say that Usopp is Sogeking, he has a fanboy orgasm. And then immediately they turn to Hack, and he's like, "Did I really get my hand broken by this guy?" And then you have you have Kanjiro see him leap down into the further down so you can find Kanjiro, and then you have like Koala and Saba and everyone trying to ward off the people who are trying to get to Usopp and that are trying to get them, and they're like complaining, all the while saying, "Why are you guys still, you were just whatever." And then, of course, you see now Trebo and Diamante, who were before the Pika moved everything, was in front of the factory, or they're in front of the factory still, even after Pika moved the island around. They were ready to stand there at guard together, but then they were called by Doflamingo to regroup at the palace. And then you see, and then of course, when you see all the people who were on the palace plateau, um, um, and you see that Kiros went off already on his own, like Luffy normally does, to try and go after Doflamingo. And of course, they had another Becca moment where they're running up to the surface and she has to stop and break down in tears because even though after she got her memories back that she already had a crying about how she remembers her father, Luffy over Dendemushi tells her again, yes, she asked Luffy, oh, what does the soldier look like as a human? And he has to explain to her, oh yeah, he's the guy from the Colosseum statue. He's your father. And she's like, oh my god, he's my father? And broke down crying. And of course, Robin had to gently nudge her forward while she still cried. Like, it was an okay episode. Had a little comedy here and there, but for the most part, it was just very dragged out. And we didn't need another Rebecca crying fit scene. So, and of course, it ends off with Luffy saying over to Rebecca over the Dendemushi, "I'm sorry, you couldn't get the Marimar no Mi, but to make up for that, I'm gonna end this game and beat up Doflamingo." So, anyway, so now that's that. And according to Wikipedia, it looks like next weekend, which I believe is the 21st? No, yeah, the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd, I believe, is next weekend. Because this weekend's Valentine's Day weekend. So I believe the next weekend is the 20th, 21st, and 22nd, right?
Yep.
That weekend, apparently they're taking a week off from the anime, and then they're going to come back on March 1st.
Okay.
Or at least according to Wikipedia.
Interesting.
Next week's the next episode is called "Breaking Through Enemy Lines." Luffy and Zoro launch the counterattack, and then after they take a week off, and then they come back with "The Earth Shakes: Advent of the Giant God of Destruction, Pika," which is the beginning of Zoro versus Pika Part 2. Because even though, as we said, even now in the manga it still hasn't finished, it's been going on for so long, the fight between the two characters. But this was after Pika left to help Doflamingo out in the top of the palace. They kind of took a break, but now, in about but then the March is going to start off with that fight getting into its part 2, where it gets back to fighting at the end. But don't expect it to end soon, anime fans. It still hasn't ended yet in the manga.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But that means they still haven't gotten to the cool part, the 1080p canon, which is going to be awesome. And the other important thing that has to do with Usopp that we're not going to say because that would be spoiler for the anime only people. So that's pretty much it this week for me this week in anime. Unfortunately, due to some life stuff, I wasn't able to watch this week's episode of Naruto before the podcast. So I will bring that to you guys next week with next week's episode, which, I mean, they're filler episodes, so it shouldn't be that important, but however, I do apologize anyway for those of you who were looking forward to it.
Okay. Okay, so let's do the anime for me personally, and we'll start with Kuroko as usual. For this week, Kuroko really showed a couple things. One was development of Midorima, because we really see how far he's come since the consecutive championships from Teiko, where he was very conceited, very much like a lone player, and just all about winning and nothing, like no attachment to the team whatsoever. But now with this episode, you can really see that he does value his team, and he does. He passes actually still. We know he passed against Saren, but now he's still passing and passes to Miyagi. That's his name, right? And that really comes full circle in this episode. Two, we really number two, we see Akashi and uh, how he plays the game. Just his overwhelming dominance, starting in the third quarter, where he just completely shuts down everything, both offense and defense. Now, I'm not I'm not a fan of the way the anime describes the Emperor's Eye, where it's like he can see the future. I don't remember if the manga did that, but I do know the anime described it that way, and it's not entirely true. Obviously, it's more or less, if you've read Naruto, it's more or less like a Sharingan, where you can really see like the detail and judge based off that. That's really how Kashi's eye works. It's not like an activation or anything like that. Like realistically, it's just the fact that he's so detail oriented, he can just see it. He has just incredible perception. Um, it's just exaggerated that way because that's how Kuroko is wired. It's not actual superpowers, but they're like exaggerated superpowers or exaggerated regular powers that are pretty unrealistic, but at the same time not entirely super powerful. So Kuroko, he mentions a couple things about, um, he sees like Kagami, who is struggling to even stand against Akashi because he pretty much ankle breaks him, like even off court, and then he starts to ankle break the others, including Midorima. So we really see that Akashi is, this guy is unbelievable. And we'll see what this trump card is apparently for Midorima and Tako. Obviously, I know, but we'll see what it is in the next episode, definitely. So, with that said, this was a great episode because the basketball action was awesome, and just the fight between Generation of Miracles and even showing a lot of the other skills as well was pretty sick. So now we're going to head into the other Daisuke Ono anime, which is JoJo. And in this episode, it we start where we left off, where the barber has been taken over by Anubis and is about to cut Polnareff, and then they get into a quick scrap, but it's ultimately Jotaro who has to help because Jotaro is the strongest of the group, really, and Anubis is pretty ridiculous too. So Jotaro is able to win, and he takes over Polnareff because the cop is an idiot, and Polnareff ends up drawing it by accident. So he's taken over, and Jotaro wins again. But this one was really good. We had a really good fight in scene where Jotaro was really put on the ropes, and he really had to think of something. And one of the things I really liked about this episode was it was funny because while he was taking over Polnareff, Anubis said, "Your aura cannot do anything against so and so." I just thought it was funny that they actually mentioned the aura within the actual story. I don't know. And we got plenty of that, where he was throwing rapid punches versus the swords. So Jotaro was able to win, and Anubis gets fucked over because of Iggy and you know that whole thing. So I mean, it was pretty simple. The progression was not much, but we've beaten Anubis, I guess. And the preview. What was the preview for that? I can't remember. All of a sudden. Oh yeah, it was about Joseph, seemingly, and it was like that girl, that like thick ass girl, who looks like Elena from Street Fighter. But yeah, that's it. I mean, it was simple. There wasn't much that happened. It was just a lot of fighting and a little bit of comic relief at the end, plus the preview. I thought it was a pretty good episode. You know, I really like Jotaro, and him being on the ropes was kind of cool, and coming out on top with some decent strategy. It was all pretty cool, and he actually got stabbed and shit like that. So, damn. And Iggy is whatever. He's a little funny, sort of, kind of there. I don't really care too much for him yet, but whatever. So yeah, good episode.